Well, Undead Labs has been hit with a major controversy, guys, and this is going to be a bumpy ride of a video. Disclaimer, I mean, this stuff isn't my wheelhouse. I talk video games, video game news, so I apologize for, I guess, like the lack of smoothness in this type of discussion from myself, but let's get into it, as an article dropped by Kotaku yesterday titled Allegations of Sexism, Bullying, and Burnout Inside the Microsoft Studio Behind State of Decay 3. And I'm going to give you guys some of the main points, and then I'm going to give you guys my thoughts at the end, because there does seem to be some resolutions, but this is a pretty long article, so I'm going to have a link below so you guys can check it out. There's going to be a lot more information on there that's more specific that might not be included in this video. Also, there's some information on there on what's going on with the development of State of Decay 3, as this article kind of explains what has transpired since that trailer dropped in 2020. Before some of you guys go, Kotaku's terrible and they're not trustworthy, I actually agree in most cases. I've had to cover Kotaku articles in the past on my other YouTube channels. I am not a fan, but this article's pretty legit. Also, nobody from Undead Labs is disputing this. I even have a developer quote today on the subject. I'll share that later in the video. This is something not shared anywhere else. Also, I want to point out there's actually some intimate knowledge of some stuff with State of Decay 3. So if you're just wanting to know about the game itself, what's going on, there's stuff on there. So let's start with what seems to be the problems since the early development for State of Decay 3. And sources from this article are actually 12 current and former employees at Undead Labs, or who used to work at Undead Labs, who agreed to be anonymous to share their story. And it seems like some big problems started before the trailer even dropped in 2020. According to people on the team, they didn't even know the direction the game was going to go, let alone a zombie deer appearing in the trailer. So I just want to frame to you guys the problems that were already happening. Now, employees allege that women at Undead Labs faced issues with their voice being heard or not even being listened to at all. One person described it as a death by 1,000 paper cuts version of sexism. There was, at the time of a lot of this stuff going down, a head of HR, her name was Ann Schlosser, who employees did try to reach out to her for help, and they accused her of not being helpful at all when a lot of this stuff was brought to her attention. Now, according to another developer here, the culture at the studio, not until recently, was not hospitable for anyone that was not a white cishet man, but that it's improved in the last 6 months, and that the studio has hired a lot of diverse talent that it did not support in the past. I'll touch on this a little bit more specifically later. Now, a lot of the problems, at least from what I've gathered from this article, stems from current head of Undead Labs, Philip Holt, who has been accused of fast-tracking his friends from other studios, including accusations of nepotism and putting his own ambitions above the needs of the team. Microsoft denied this part about Holt bringing in his buddies, but apparently Microsoft did step in and was interviewing multiple employees, which soon after that, Ann Schlosser, the head of HR that I mentioned earlier, was she left, she departed, but she is claiming that her leaving had nothing to do with all this mess. But I definitely have my doubts on that. Of course, that's just my opinion. I think they saw that she did quite a few wrongs in some departments and she was gone. With that, guys, State of Decay 3's development has been noted that it's been a very rough pre-production, which, if you've been following my channel, almost every time I make a State of Decay 3 video, I've been telling you this game is in pre-production for a long time, and it seems as though we might know why, and it's a bit of a mess. Holt, the Undead Labs head, has put pressure on teams in the past to meet specific internal milestones, things like demos for State of Decay 3 to showcase to Microsoft. One was in GIF form that he wanted, and another one was featuring gameplay of State of Decay 3. And he pressured them to work overtime because he was really obsessed with proving himself a leader inside Xbox Game Studios. This is according to a source. Now, at one point, things were such a mess in regards to planning the game out. They had a buffet of game systems, and they were making features for State of Decay 3, like a refined parkour system, so think of Dying Light 2. They also had a dynamic animal spawn that was based on weather. Now, according to a former and current developers, there were different teams doing different things, but there was no link between all the teams, and there was little oversight, so there was no consistency with what was happening with the game itself, which to me does speak to poor leadership at the top, if that is what the developers are explaining, and it's true. And to me, guys, this kind of seemed like the theme with a lot of this stuff in this article. I'm actually surprised Microsoft has already stepped in, and Holt is still the head of Undead Labs because he's the one who hired Ann Schlosser, and the employees said she wasn't helpful. He was also allegedly, according to the article and sources, to undermine female directors and not supporting them, and then hiring male employees that superseded them. He's kind of been at the forefront of a lot of the stuff that I saw here. And as someone who's been in leadership roles myself, when your team is failing at things, even if you're not exactly the person failing at that particular problem, but someone within your team, you're still kind of the head of the team. Therefore, it's your responsibility to take the onus, to take the blame for everything that's happening and what you're in charge of. So again, if this Kotaku article, guys, is indeed true to me, it seems like the finger has to be pointed mostly squarely at the top. Of course, that's just my opinion. I want to make sure I make that clear. That right there is my opinion. And as I said at the start of this video, none of this stuff is my wheelhouse. With that, what's happened since all this stuff has been going down? According to Microsoft, they have entirely new leadership teams, diverse hires in 2022, 42% female or non-binary, 29% racial or ethnic minority group. And in a March survey that was taken, 84% of the respondents within Undead Labs have said they are willing to recommend working there. Now, according to some other quotes, some employees now do indeed think that the game is on track, with one person saying it could be such a good game and we've got a lot of great people working on it, and I just hope that we don't repeat the terrible habits of the last few years. Another thing I want to point out, it also says Undead Labs has rolled out a new training for its managers, with one current developer saying it's their first ever sexual harassment workshop. So things do look like they have turned around. So for those who might have been listening to all this and they're just kind of outraged, and I don't blame you if you are outraged, there does seem to be some turnaround. I also want you guys to listen to friend of the channel and current Undead Labs developer Jeffrey Card on some of his thoughts on this article and what he had to say. Take a listen to this.
So Jimmy the Geek XL says, I suppose everyone is talking about the article that came out today. I hope Undead Labs is in a good state now. You know, I think everybody at Undead Labs is grappling with the article and the stories that were told in the article in different ways. It kind of applies to each of us in different ways. And, you know, there's different things that different members of the studio need to do in response to the article. And in response to, not really in response to the article, it's like, a lot of the things that were talked about in the article were not surprises to us internally. We kind of knew it was coming because we've been aware of some of these problems ourselves. And we've been already trying to grapple with a lot of these problems without needing the article to tell us to do it. So it's not really, it's the article we're reacting to. Though there were, you know, a couple of things that were said in the article that might have a different impact on you know, I'm not going to get into it. But the point is, the issues that were raised by the article are things that we need to grapple with. And we're all, each of us is sort of tackling it from our own perspective in our own way, because it requires different things of us. And so, yeah, but by and large, the studio is taking it in stride. I think the studio is taking it in a very healthy way. The discussions that I've heard around the studio are very focused on, well, let's make sure that, you know, that this studio gets better and that you can't write another article like this, you know, in the future, because, you know, we do such a good job of responding to these issues and making things better. So that's the attitude that I've been hearing around the office, and I think it's good. It's one of the things that makes me, you know, proud to work in Undead Labs. Even when things go wrong, there are a lot of people at the studio who are very, very devoted to getting them right. And I think that means a lot to me, even though, you know, I mean, I've had, you know, different kinds of bad experiences at work before. You know, in the past practically a decade that I've worked in Undead Labs, I've had times where I, you know, went into therapy because of experiences I had that were so bad. But I've also always had people at the lab that I knew I could trust, that I knew had everyone's best interest at heart, and that can sometimes get you through even bad times, that, you know, that are very, I mean, you know, you can have serious problems at a place and still love the place for other reasons. And that's kind of, you know, that's the perspective, you know, that's the perspective that I have. But, you know, a place like that can only be valuable if you really are working hard to try to repair the problems that are there. You can't just, it's not a case of, oh, you just take the good with the bad. Who cares about the bad stuff, because there's good stuff too. No, it's the good stuff is what makes it worthwhile to work on the bad stuff and fix the bad stuff. If you've got a company that is nothing but bad stuff, yeah, just go away and burn it all down. But if you've got a place that has got, has had serious issues to grapple with, but also has a lot of really good people that you can trust and you can rely on, that feels like a place where you want to keep working and you want to keep trying to make it better. And it could be a starting point for something really beautiful for the future. So there you go.
First off, I want to say bless Jeffrey for his personal thoughts. I'll let them speak for themselves. I won't give any of my thoughts on what he had to say. I think what he says really speaks for itself. Follow his YouTube channel, guys, where he actually plays State of Decay, and follow his Twitch for those live thoughts that you just saw. I'll have his links below. So overall, I mean, this has been a bit of a mess, to say the least. It does explain a lot of what we've all been wondering, why this game to this day is still in pre-production. Also, the employees who've had a rough time. That's something that I don't want to take light of. This seems to be an industry-wide problem, but I'm not going to go deep into that, as we already are seriously getting out of my expertise in wheelhouse with this video. But I'm glad that changes are happening, have been happening. I'm glad that Undead Labs is very, very apparently working from within to really fix its issues. They are recognizing they haven't been perfect, and they're working on all of that as a whole. I do want to talk much further about some of the stuff within this article about State of Decay 3 that came out. I will do that for a future video. Make sure you guys are subscribed and you guys thumbs up this video. Last thing that I want you guys to take note of is, very recently, just a few weeks ago, Phil Spencer said one of the games he was looking forward to the most is State of Decay 3. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Another team, and this one's probably not that big of a surprise for people who've watched me play, but I was a big State of Decay 2 player, and Undead with the looking at State of Decay 3, and I'm incredibly excited about some of the advancements they're going to make. They've had this pattern, they've talked about it publicly, of from State of Decay 1 to 2 to 3 and what they want to do, and we haven't shown a lot on State of Decay, but it's a game that I really enjoy playing. I'm a big co-op player. I like building, I like resourcing, and I'm really excited about where that team's going.
So that to me tells you, man, that I do think things are starting to now be on track, and you'd be foolish to think that Phil hasn't known about the things that have been going on. So I just wanted you guys to see that quote again, because I've talked about it before. With that, let me know your thoughts on all this. This was a lot to take in. Do you guys still feel confident in Undead Labs going forward? Has this potentially soured some of your thoughts and enthusiasm? Let me know in the comments your unfiltered mind on all of this, because guys, this was a lot to take in, and it seems not only is Undead Labs still processing, but so am I. So my goodness. With that, guys, I'm Sunny, and as always, stay safe out there, survivors.